All right, now we're going to do cosine. The trickiest part about trig is actually knowing which one to use when. So you're going to use these pages of notes as a reference for that when you're doing your practice. All right, so cosine is another relationship that relates sides and angles of a right triangle, except for this time you can see from the little CAH that the cosine of an angle is equal to the adjacent side. And remember, adjacent means next to side over the hypotenuse. So we always know where the hypotenuse is, and the adjacent side is the one that's right next to the angle. I know this is weird, but I always look at it as kind of like a hug. That's how I think of it. It looks like a hug. In the angle, it's like, you know, the angle and then the two sides right next to it. So let's look at number 1. So of course, all trig is based on an angle. So we're going to do the cosine of angle measured 32 degrees. The side adjacent to it, right next to it, and the hypotenuse are the parts that make up the cosine relationship. And so we have adjacent over hypotenuse, like that. And as you know from before, we multiply both sides by the denominator to cancel it out. So we have x cosine 32 equals 5. And to get the x alone, we need to divide by cosine of 32. Because remember, cosine 32 represents an actual number. We treat it like a number. And then we take out our calculator, making sure that it is in degree mode. And just type in 5 divided by cosine of 32, and we get 5.9. So the length of the hypotenuse of this right triangle is 5.9 units long. All right, number 2. Here's our angle. So we're going to be finding the cosine of 10 degrees. Our adjacent side is right next to it, and the hypotenuse on the other side. So we do x over 10, adjacent over hypotenuse. We're going to multiply both sides by the denominator. So we have 10 times cosine 10 equals x. Take out your calculator. 10 cosine 10. X is approximately 9.8 units long. All right, and last example is when we need to find the angle. And hopefully as soon as I said that, you were like, oh, I bet we need to use the inverse, which is true. So we're going to do cosine of the angle, and we need the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. So cosine of the angle equals 9 over 10. We're going to do the inverse so that we can actually find the measure of the angle. And then we just type into the calculator, inverse cosine, 9 divided by 10. And it just tells us that the angle is approximately 25.8 degrees. So same basic topic, same basic concept for all of these. It's just the relationship that changes. So one little tiny baby review before you move on. Remember, we're using the word SOHCAHTOA to help us remember. And then I'm just going to draw a random right triangle. Let's see. Let's do 5, 7, and let's actually make this accurate. So I'll use the Pythagorean theorem to find the other side. I'm just going to put 8.6. Simplified radical would be better, but I'm going to go with 8.6. All right, so we can find all of the trig functions using this one right triangle. But first, we just have to decide which angle we're going to base off of. So we're going to base it off of this angle. If we want to find the sine of that angle, it's going to be opposite, which is 5, over hypotenuse, 8.6. Opposite, hypotenuse. If we want to find the cosine of that angle, it will be adjacent and hypotenuse, so 7 over 8.6. And if we want to find the tangent of that angle, it's going to be opposite, 5, over adjacent, 7. So being able to recognize and find which relationship to use is the hardest part of trig. All right, the end.